and today I am reviewing the new Broadway play, Cult of Love, written by Leslye Headland, directed by Cullman, and running through February 2nd at Second Stage's The Helen Hayes Theater at 240 West 44th Street in New York City. Come to my Patreon page where you can, for as little as $1 a month, support this show as well as my classic cinema podcast, Yesterday's Matinee, which is available on Spotify, and the latest episode, currently on the 2004 film Ray, is always available exclusively for patrons. Come check it out when you have some time and support my work. Thank you to my current patrons and especially my Neo and Hamilton tier patrons, and welcome to the new ones. A link will be in the description. The dysfunctional family in theater is a trope, and in my time reviewing theater, I've had my share of dysfunctional family comedies and dramas, from Young Jean Lee's Straight White Man to Paula Vogel's Mother Play. They all have similar formats. Family members either start together and split up and maybe reconcile, or they start split and they come together for some forced reason, be it a holiday or a funeral or whatever, and maybe reconcile then. The conflicts usually dwell upon at least one family member disapproving of what another is doing, usually upon some moral ground that tends to be projected as holier than thou in attitude. There are always at least one or two of those plays each season. This year we had Jez Butterworth's The Hills of California, which is decidedly a drama, and now we have Headland's Cult of Love, which is kind of a mix, a dramedy, if you will. The play centers around the Dahl family, with matriarch Virginia Jenny Dahl, played by Mare Winningham, and her husband William Bill Dahl, who is suffering from early complications of Alzheimer's, played by David Rash. It is set on Christmas Eve in their farmhouse in Connecticut. John Lee Beatty's scenic design is excellent. I would want to live in that house if it was real. It has a sense of warmth, depth, and scale that feels inviting, despite the family and their issues living in it. The play opens pretty copacetic, at least it appears to be, as the family is singing a Christmas carol together, but the facade quickly crumbles away even before the song is over, as eldest child Mark Dahl, played by Zachary Quinto, gets annoyed by his brother-in-law James Bennett, an Episcopalian preacher, played by Christopher Lowell, who takes over the song a little too much for his taste. Mark is there with his wife Rachel, played by Molly Bernard. James is there with his wife Diana, the youngest of the Dahls, played by Shailene Woodley, who is pregnant with their second child. Their eldest child is still an infant and in various stages of awakened sleep upstairs the entire course of the play. Also present as the play starts is Evie Dahl, the second eldest child, played by Rebecca Henderson, and her wife Pippa Ferguson, played by Roberta Colindrez. Jenny is attempting to keep the family occupied and civil, as she has a firm family tradition that they don't have dinner until everyone arrives. Well, it's 9 p.m., everybody is hungry, and the final child, Johnny, a recovering addict played by Christopher Sears, is late with his friend Lauren Montgomery, whom he sponsors, played by Barbie Ferreira. The tension builds as Evie and Mark have previously renounced any devotion to the Christian faith, while Diana and James badger Evie, Mark, and their respective spouses with their emphatic devotion to their own faith. Mark, at one point, had even graduated from Yale Divinity School, but chose to become a lawyer instead. Jenny, meanwhile, chooses to live a life of denial that her children have in any way forsaken their faith. I think in another universe where this year's election results were different than what they turned out to be, Cult of Love would have been a much funnier show. But with things being the way they are, people that are still stinging from Donald Trump's victory, and with the arrogance of the Christian conservative nationalist movement, the show carries a different weight. The luxury of laughing at the absurdity of Diana and James's behavior has instead been replaced with a feeling of cringeworthy disgust. The situation we live in doesn't necessarily make the play better or worse, though. It's just the emotional reality we live in reflecting the story we're being given. Headland's narrative does push further into the dramatic, which is beneficial to the narrative we currently sit in, as secrets from Diana and James come out about why they aren't tending to James's church for Christmas service this year. Evie and Pippa have their own announcement that offend the fundamentalist Diana and James. The tension continues to build until the free-spirited Johnny and Lauren show up and help ease some of the tensions for a while, at least until their own worldview must be challenged as well. There's a lot of story here, and I'm being rather selective about what I'm sharing so as not to reveal too much. I haven't even gotten into the debates about cultural appropriation that happens early on in the play. What's impressive is that Headland is able to fit so much into one act that runs about an hour and 40 minutes. Not only that, but there is also easily 10 to 15 minutes worth of caroling the family does that takes up the runtime and kind of gives a reprieve for the audience. The play moves very fast for such a large ensemble drama. Speaking slightly hyperbolically here, if Jez Butterworth or Brandon Jacobs Jenkins had written this, it would have been 3 hours with each character pairing up with almost every other character at some point for some comic or serious discussion. That isn't a slight against the two playwrights. I think there's a place for that, and it can be rather enriching in a theatrical sense, and I do like their work. But Headland infuses a bit of reality here in recognizing that some of these people aren't going to spend time alone with certain other people. And having 3 or 4 people talking at once, you can get through a lot more thematically in a shorter time. It works. The narrative moves quick, and it mostly feels like nothing is shortchanged. I would have liked more attention addressed to Bill and his health, but I understand why it isn't addressed as much as it should. The children are all too selfish with their own complaints with each other, especially Mark and Evie's pursuit of recognition and validation from their mother, that their father's health is last on their list of priorities. Cult of Love's ensemble cast is overall excellent. Rebecca Henderson and Roberta Colindrez are particularly great as Evie and Pippa. Henderson's Evie is appropriately done with the family, and either the bigotry or just plain dismissiveness she gets, particularly from Diana and Ginny. Colindrez gets some of the best laughs of the show as Pippa's biting wit points out the absurdity of some of the ignorance certain family members project. Quinto, who I sometimes think plays Mark with a touch too much severity, does get a brilliant monologue at the end of the play about God's love and what it really is to Lauren. It's the most beautiful moment of the play, and he nails it and really wraps up the truth of the conflict that's happening within the play. I wish Winningham and Resch were given more to do, as they are both excellent actors. Mayor Winningham does get some strong moments, and Resch gives a tender turn as Bill, who doesn't have much to do in the play, but every time he is on stage, he is one of, if not the most important character in the scene. I would have liked to have seen that developed a little more. Cult of Love may be difficult for some audiences in attendance. With the political reality we're currently living in and the invasive nature much of the Christian church has infused itself into that reality, this story is going to hit close to home for many of us. Still, Headland is sensitive with the story and makes sure to find balance in its narrative by the end. Not everything ends happily, but it does end honestly, which I think is admirable and makes the journey worth its time. But I am only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the comments below. If you'd like to see Cult of Love, I'll leave a link in the description where you can get tickets. Also in the description will be links to my Patreon and Spotify pages, as well as my social media handles if you'd like to follow and or support my work. You can also support my work by liking and sharing this video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be Long Wharf Theater's production of She Loves Me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you at the theater.